And now, marine weather around Alaska.
For Monday, small craft advisories for the central and south coast for south to east winds at 25 knots. And then some gale warnings here for a small area of the central coast. Out of the east, 35 knots, and then much lighter just to the north there with 15-knot winds. Lynn Canal north at 20 knots. And small craft advisories for Stevens Passage. North winds 25 knots, south 35 for Clarence Strait. And then for the Stevens Passage Clarence Strait areas, looking at south winds at 15 knots, otherwise south at 20 for Lynn Canal. And for the south coast here, west to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots, and southwest to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots up north. Prince William Sound north at 10 tomorrow, variable winds at 10 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, but southwest 20 here for the west side. Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands looking at west winds at 20 knots tomorrow, and Cook Inlet southwesterlies at 20 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas. And then northeast winds for northern Cook Inlet on Tuesday at 15 knots, east at 20 for southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, southeast winds at 25 there, and southeast winds 20 to 30 knots there for the North Gulf Coast, and small craft advisories for Prince William Sound, southeast winds 25 knots with 6 foot seas. Kodiak Island, west winds 20 knots, seas 4 to 5 feet Monday. Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisories, south to southeast winds 25 to 30 knots, and a south wind at 20 for Bristol Bay. For the Bay on Tuesday, small craft advisories, east 25 knots there. Otherwise, northwest to north, or variable winds here, depending on where you are for the Alaska Peninsula, 20 to 25 knots, and east or southeast to south winds, 15 to 25 knots around Kodiak Island. Eastern Aleutians tomorrow, south to southeasterlies at 30 knots, southwest 20 to 30 knots there for Adak and Atka, and the Western Aleutians gale warnings, north to northeast winds 30 to 35 knots. West winds 30 knots for the Western Aleutians on Tuesday with gale warnings out for Atka and Adak area, as well as areas over toward Nikolsky. They're looking at west winds 35 to 40 knots, Unalaska Island west-northwest at 30 knots. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeast winds at 20 knots. For the Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, south at 10 to 15 knots, and a northeast breeze at 10 knots there for Norton Sound. And for St. Matthew Island, east winds 15 knots, southeast at 25 for the Pribilofs. Those will become northwest at 25 for St. Paul and St. George on Tuesday, about the same for St. Matthew Island, northwest 20 for the area from south of Nunivak Island to Cape Newenham, otherwise northeast at 15 for St. Lawrence Island and the Yukon Delta coast. And moving up to the north, we've got for the central and eastern Arctic coast, east-northeast winds tomorrow at 15 knots. But continued brisk wind advisories for the western Arctic coast there, northeast at 30 knots, and the Chukchi Sea, northeast 15 to 20. And for Tuesday, the Chukchi Sea, north to northeast winds at 20 knots, still carrying the brisk wind advisories for the western Arctic coast for east-northeasterlies, 25 to 30 knots, east to 20 knots for the central coast, and brisk wind advisories now for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for easterlies at 25 knots.